It's Monday. We're getting in tune to the straight up and narrow one more time. All right, babe. There we go. How is it going, everybody? So good to see you all. Peace. Good to have. May I invoke favor upon you this day? Great favor. Favor just showing up everywhere. No matter where you go, favor's there. And nothing missing, nothing broken be in your life. How is everyone doing? Hello, all the moderators. Hello, Lois, Cajun Queen Tarot. Hello, Blazing River. Good to see you, my friend. Haven't seen you in a while. Robin, hello, Melissa and Charlotte. Big Al, how you doing, buddy? Let's see, Ashley. I'll just go on the bigger screen. Nick, how you doing, buddy? Going to get Nick on here. Tammy, hello. Susie Q. Hello, Valerie. Truth Seeker, how you doing? Good to see you. Dancing with the waves. I like that. Dance on waves. That's cool. Think agape love forever. So good to see you. Christopher, hello. KC, the Sunshine Band. Brandy, how are you do? You're a fine girl. And Robert, good to see you as well. So good to see everybody. So let me get in here. YouTube's always trying to mess with us. Brian was saying that they have really been apparently ghosting us. They're in the chat room, and maybe that's why we got the thumbs down, huh? Maybe we got those who work not for the right side, huh? Let's get the conspiracy going. Because, anytime you prejudge someone, you're just prejudging yourself, and that's not good. So, happy birthday to everyone who's having one, and all of you who are having anniversaries. I'm one of those. Hey, it's a time to embrace and continue to make the memories. So, tomorrow we got Trina on. And looking forward to that's going to be a good discussion. And by the way, check out David Barry, 75 on his YouTube channel. It's got some interesting videos on there. I think the Book of Life. Isn't that right, David? So all free thinkers, welcome to the Enclave. And we're going to have fun. We got a lot to cover. So want to get right off on... Let me get here because we have, I'm titling this show kind of the review. We cover a lot of material here, a lot of material. Anyone who doesn't believe that, well, you go and do 5 hours of original programming, actually 7. See how fun that is. Actually, it's a blast. If you love it, it's not work. All right, so we've covered a lot. I mean, this channel, we have gone from, the incoming, Planet X, Nibiru to magic, seeing what that was about, reading about, and the alien interview. We're going to cover that today. All the way to where we've now come to some, I think, startling facts that have to begin to be factored in to our cognitive reasoning. All right, we know that humanity can't remember our origins. We know there was an Ellie that is what is titled a Earth Elimination Life event about 13,000 years ago. Comet hit the planet. We don't know any more than what we've been able to dig up, but now we know something that we didn't know 200 years ago. We knew there was someone here before us. Now, what we now realize is that no God was powerful enough to stop it. I mean, if you're a God and you don't have any mercy for the obliviation of life, what kind of God are you? And apparently, well, wasn't any God powerful enough to stop it? Or the other side of the coin, it just didn't care. Who knows? We know there were multiple subspecies of man. We have learned, particularly in the last 50 years, of the denizens, much, much more about them. We're learning that Neanderthal wasn't the knuckle draggers that they have been told us, the caveman. We know Cro-Magnon was highly advanced, intelligent, had more cranial capacity. Their brains were bigger than ours. But you never read that, do you? We know they were advanced and highly intelligent. Okay. Well, that puts a different spin on the supposed, modern mindset today. We know no religion survived. Now, the Hindu religion seems to have something that mirrors potentially an event. It would more closely align with Ariel and the Dominion force. We know that no modern religion today existed at all, and that all are post-comet impact, meaning they are all man-created based on folklore, myths, and fragments. Sadly, what most people seem to think is a history book is nothing more than it's literature, fiction, the Bible, the Quran, etc. All fiction. We think we are superior and we have a soul. We think we think there are other beings in spirit form. Evidence seems to suggest that is the case. We know there is a thing called magic. We know it works. We know there are life forms besides man. This we know. All right. Now, this is where it starts getting interesting for us all, because this is what the geological record is showing. We know something happened 70,000 years ago. It is said by anthropologists that us ape men, yeah, I know, but hear me out. We suddenly started learning how to talk, made us different. We know there was another event they estimate about 45,000 years ago. We know 12,800 years ago, the Ellie event happened, and we know something else that we cannot define, but seems to be parasitic, a virus, infected all Homo sapiens on the planet. Best we can determine is maybe as late as 8,000 years ago, more likely more recent as 6,000 years ago. Many theories abound. We're a lab experiment. Man was created as nothing but a slave. Simple evolution from ape man to man ape. And by the way, you can get all wrapped around the axle, get your panties in a wad, but the fact of the matter is, we are more akin to the ape than we are to any other species. In fact, folks, statistically, it's a very narrow margin. People don't like to think about that, but hey, you explain to me the RH factor. No one has, and neither can you. Face it. Either we are refugees, not even of this planet. We're convicted convicts from another world in the process of evolving to a perfect state. Reincarnation. To just being born once, nothing afterwards. Now, these are all the theories of who and what we are. Man is in the middle of an alien or angelic war. We are gods, and we are testing ourselves or playing a game. We are spiritual beings of thought and infected with a virus. None of this is real at all. We're just dreaming. We're nothing but simulations of a program of a superior intelligence. We were created in some unseen God's image, which no one knows. Someone says you can look at the image, but yet we're created in the image. I figured that one out. Man has fallen, but from what we do not know. We are speaking thought beings. We are trapped. We are born perfect and take on corruption. Now, that's about, in a nutshell, what modern man, in all of his various points of view. You look in here and you probably found yourself somewhere, because this is the sum total of everything that we believe. Homo sapiens, sapiens. I mean, pick your choice and then follow the rabbit hole, because they're all rabbit holes. They lead somewhere. I don't know where, to be honest with you, but they do. So this is what we've come to. I mean, I think it pretty much states what we are. I mean, I guess we could have added some others to this, but, you know, the idea is to do the KISS principle here. So we're keeping it simple, stupid for all of us, because, you know, we have a tendency that we love to add, well, most humans love drama. Maybe that's why we're here. But in any case, so having now figured that out, at least, well, I don't know if figuring out is the right word. I would probably say it's the conglomeration. But that's seriously, that is about what the sum total is. And, you know, we'll continue to explore. I mean, some of these have some deep merit. The fact that something invaded the earth, whether it's a microscopic organism, whether it's an organism of a single source, but there are more and more credibility coming to the fact that we were infected with a virus and it's affected all of us. And if you look at this thing, folks, the human race is shutting down. I know a lot of people don't like to think that, but hey, we're not getting any smarter here. Things out in the real world, if you want to call it the real world, it's precarious at best. Now, we've been talking a lot about breaking this virus. And I think that's what it is, whether it's a program, whether it's a virus, whatever, something is going wrong. Something's going wrong with the program. It seems to be, well, failing. I want to give Joyce a big shout out on this. She sent this. And again, I thought it was so appropriate, this gentleman's work, that, well, let's share it a little bit, because again, this has been a point of contention for a lot of people. A lot of people are getting themselves free out of what my series called The Godspell, done 2 years ago, 2+ years. So this is a work by Richard Carrier. Go to his website to get in more information. I will leave the link in the thing. All credit goes to him. He did some fabulous work here. We're going to go through this. I know it's 44 slides, but we'll get through it because we got a lot more material. The New Testament, we don't have what they had originally. I think that could be pretty well stated. Problem number one, all scholars agree no manuscript reflects the original, and all are quite divergent from it. The text in modern Bibles is, at best, is merely hypothetical creation of 20th century scholars. Yeah. You don't think the virus is well set in? But scholars are often wrong in their judgments. Many of their decisions are dubious and debatable. In fact, they often disagree with each other and admit to being uncertain about countless of their textual decisions. The New Testament text is therefore a product of fallible human opinions. Problem number 2. This means for 2,000 years, Christians have had the wrong Bible. Question is, was there ever really a Bible? The New Testament is full of errors and distortions. Over 9,000 is the current count. Modern Bibles are better, but still print reading, we know, are false, and fail to mention hundreds of cases where the original reading is uncertain or disputed. And remember, folks, no one has an original book. So you can't say that it's infallible. That's just ignorance. And we hate ignorance here. You can't just assume the reconstructed text is the correct text because scholars remain in disagreement and uncertain about many points. Many translations are biased because of the religious tilt of the particular doctrine. You have to be very suspicious and careful when arguing from the text of the New Testament. The fact is, no Christian has any claim theologically or any other way to the Old Testament. In fact, the debate in World Council churches right now is to get rid of the Old Testament. They knew it was a problem from the beginning, and now it's really becoming a real problem. So if you look at here, Richard did some great work on here. The New Testament supposedly written and copied many times between 50 and 120 AD because no one can verify it. There are scraps, and I did mean scraps, dating 120, 200 AD. And remember, the first century is one of the most prolific writing centuries that yet we have very little that survived. There was a deliberate purge of destroying books, text, parchments, stone, a concerted effort. 200 to 300 AD, a few whole books or partial books. They don't know. And then supposedly the first completed Bibles, 2 in Greek, 3 in Latin, 400, 500 AD when they re-edited it again, 4 in Greek and 5 in Latin. Yeah. Why so many? Yeah, that may be a problem. When we said scraps, folks, they're saying that this is the Gospel of John. There you go. Yeah, you figure that one out and write me and let me know. Problem number 3, the rate of error and distortion in the visible period from 200 to 600 AD is very high. By 600 AD, 5 to 10% of the text is wrong. Now, you can see what's happening. If, again, you're going to find out these books are all made up. We don't know. The rate of error behind the curtain can be expected to be no less. There is no evidence otherwise. Therefore, there must have been many changes behind the curtain that won't show in any of their surviving manuscripts. In fact, the minimum rate of distortion would be 1% per century. So for the first 100 years, at least 1 in 100 verses were being distorted before we get any manuscripts to detect it by them. It gets worse. From this, we have the modern day supposed Bibles. But you can see clearly, this ain't good stuff, folks. Problem number 4, we know most changes to the text occur in the first century of its transmission because 1, it is then much easier to get away with or make an error that goes unnoticed and uncorrected. The quality of scribes at work on the Bible in its first 2 centuries has been proven to be substantially inferior to the professional quality of later centuries. Please check references of Barbara Allen's work. 3, a curve showing the stability of the New Testament text over the first 12 centuries shows stability increasing every century, which entails its stability was worse in the first century than in the following centuries, precisely the century invisible to us. So see, this is what's going on. You have modern scholars who are going back on records that are flawed to begin with. You know, I've asked the question, how in the hell can you know the future if you don't know your past? You don't have any idea where you're going. Errors, folks, errors, myths, folklore. That's all it is. No originals. The general trends that discredit reliability, harmonizations. Now, you see, when you statistically have something almost mirrors that supposedly comes from two separate sources that weren't collaborating, it's called harmonizing. That's how most students get caught cheating after each other, you know, selling a term paper. You try to alter it, but it still gets better. We've caught hundreds of cases occurring. Scribes often changed one gospel to agree to another. They found a problem. So this is making Matthew agree with Luke and Luke with John. Someone says, what does the t-shirt says? Never trust an atom. They make up everything. All right. We've caught hundreds of cases occurring in the first 2 centuries after the curtain, but how many other behind the curtain? See, someone's masterminding this, folks. I mean, talking about an intelligence. This can't be said to be trivial and matters a great deal if the Gospels originally disagree with each other. I mean, these cats were supposed to have traveled with this dude, right? But what reality is that they had 4 different, completely different stories, not the same individual. If the Gospels have been harmonized to some extent, then we can't claim that we have what they originally had. Example, many early manuscripts, including the earliest Bibles, both the Codex Vaticanus and the Codex Sinaiticus, have Matthew agreeing with John that Jesus was A, struck by a soldier's spear, and B, came out blood and water. We have manuscripts showing this was an insertion. But how many such edits were made behind the curtain? We can identify at least 100 of such harmonizations in the first 500 years for which we have manuscripts. They're editing it, folks. They're massaging it. Therefore, there must be at least 20 more made in the first 100 years that are invisible to us. Now, here's where it gets really strange. It follows that any time you argue from the fact that 2 Gospels agree, you can't really know if that agreement was in the originals or fabricated later. Listen, the Gospel of Mark is the biggest fraudulent book in there, ever written by Mark. And it's admitted that it was added to, taken away. And how is that the infallible word? General trends that continue to discredit reliability. Interpolations, the number of passages added to the New Testament by later editors is huge compared to the most of other ancient books. Christians clearly had no scruple at all against doing this and did it frequently. Jerome, he's the asshole that completely inserted where today it's infected. He put the word Lucifer in there. And man, that was a fraud. He did it because he said he had a dream. It sounded like what Lucifer would be. And you got freaking people now, 2,000 years, 1,600 years later, who actually think there's a real thing called Lucifer, Satan, the devil. Ay, ay, ay. So, for example, out of maybe 100 of we know of, John 7, let he who's without sin cast the first stone. These have all been added, ladies and gentlemen. An angel stirring the pool at Bethesda, Jesus sweating blood. The tomb had a door that took 20 men to open. You know where that came from? Josephus. Not John. Josephus. Case in point, the ending of Mark. Earliest copies end at verse 16:8. Describes no appearance of the risen Jesus, and we know Jesus didn't exist. The word didn't exist. They took it out. You don't know what the hell people are praying to or invoking in this name because it's a made-up name. Says those who saw the empty tomb never told anyone. Well, that completely changes the whole story in John and Luke. And Matthew, got to throw it out. This is the cat that was there, supposedly. Scholars can't agree whether we've lost Mark's original ending or Mark ended at 16:8, and it was never written by Mark. Legend says it was written by James. So experts don't know if we're missing a major part of Mark or not. And if we are, then we don't have what they had. Some copies of Mark by the 4th century also added this. They added it. Now, how can you add something if you weren't there? Yeah. Says Jesus reproached them for their unbelief and hardness of heart because they had not believed those who had seen him after he had risen. And they defended themselves saying, well, this world of lawlessness, this is the disciples. We didn't get this story. This world of lawlessness and unbelief is under Satan, who does not allow the unclean things that are under the spirits to comprehend God's true power. Because of this, reveal your righteousness now. Folks, this is a completely different dialogue. They said these things to Christ. Wait a minute. What happened to Jesus? They're interplaying two different names here. And Christ replied. Now get this. The term of years of the authority of Satan has been fulfilled, but other dreadful things are drawing near, even to those for whose sake as sinners I was delivered up to death, so that they might return to the truth and no longer sin, and might inherit the spiritual and incorruptible glory of righteousness, which is in heaven. So go into the world and preach the gospel to all creation. Wait a minute. What's this term of Satan? Never heard that before. Other copies of Mark by the 3rd century had also added this. The women were saying to one another, who will roll away the stone for us from the entrance of the tomb? Folks, we're talking 300 years later, they're adding to the story, embellishing it, if it ever happened at all. Then all of a sudden, at the 3rd hour of the day, there was darkness over the whole earth. The angels descended from heaven and rose up into the splendor of the living God. They ascended with him, and immediately it was light. What? Let's read that again. So here we got the story of Mary and Martha. All right, we've got many different stories that, Roman soldiers saw an angel, they ran, but this is a totally different one. Then all of a sudden, at the 3rd hour of the day, I believe it's about 9 o'clock in the morning, there was, or 6 o'clock, excuse me, there was darkness over the whole earth. The angels descended from heaven, and as he rose up in the splendor of the living God, they ascended with him, and immediately it was light. Wow. So the meanings within these 2 to 3 centuries, 4 different interrelated endings had been added to Mark's text. 1, the short ending. 2, the long ending. 3, the satanic powers ending. 4, the angelic miracle ending. Mark's ending isn't the only example. There are hundreds of others. Now, I've got this. We won't go through it all because I have other things I want to cover. But this is just a small example. And the thing is that, folks, let me get out of here, is that it's affected us. It's affected us in every way. We're going to be getting into Mrs. End-all Be-all's work. I love the name. But she really does seem to have, I believe it's a she, one of the most unique takes. I mean, we don't know very little past 8,000 years ago. We know that whatever happened to our ancestors, when that comet hit, then all evidence shows it was a comet. We know it is. I mean, you read history, folks, you just learn. You learn, and again, many of you are reading this book again. It's a phenomenal book. It goes right with Graham Hancock's book. Highly recommend that you get those books and learn what they're digging up, because then compare that to what we think that we know today. It's kind of that simple, really. And I know the indoctrination, it's deep. Jeffrey and I were talking about it yesterday. It's deep, but it's lessening up. Recently, the Barna group with the millennials, 64% is what they call dropouts. That's the largest single departure in any generation. That's millions and millions of people. And people rile against channels like mine, Jeffrey's, Rex's, others. When we bring out the documents and say, read it, I have a special t-shirt I've ordered. You're going to love it because it's going to express exactly, visually, what this really is. Let's take another look at something here. All right. Another thought. I did this video and I thought it was so appropriate. When you get as many videos as we start putting into the archives, many people are not aware of it. I did this video talking about, are we refugees from another planet? We know that there were other planets. Some now are suggesting there may have been as much as 3 other planets before something happened, inhabited, all within the habitable zone. Tiamat, Electra, and Maldek. The asteroid belt, as we know it, they say was the leftover of the formation of our solar system. One theory is that they are the remains of a planet or planets that was destroyed in a massive collision long ago. There's a theory called it's kind of the train wreck theory. It's like something came into our solar system, planets were being pushed in, and collisions were taking place. So what if it's not? What if this is really what used to be our home, and what if it wasn't a collision? What if it was, in fact, the debris of an attack on a galactic scale, that our solar system, we've lost the records, and I don't think it's that long ago. Don't think it's millions of years. It may be less than tens of thousands of years. But there is evidence, if you look at this through a different point of view, as a weapon, then it changes things. And again, they're saying it occurred millions of years ago. But you know, one thing I have found, usually what our science is telling us today is going to be proven wrong down the road. Hell, they're talking about changing Einstein's or adding on to it. Relativity. But if you look at this, it is said that Mars was much bigger than what we see today. And if you think about this, there's a lot of debris, folks. A lot of debris. I mean, if you were piloting your craft to come in and visit Earth, even to get around our sun, the obstacle course is immense. So the question is, was there a war? Was there a war of our species? Did we advance ourselves to a degree that we've once before reached complete near perfection? Did something happen? Was there a renegade force? Was it an organized force that conquers worlds? You have to think about this. There's so much about us that it seems like we're just, again, we're a hybrid. I don't know what a pure human would look like. No one else would either. And so this is a dramatization of what the aftermath looked like. And you can see by the animation how it began to full in. It says that some of Jupiter's moons once belonged to our moons. So that Earth may have had other moons that are no longer here. We don't know. Now, there's something I want to talk about. So, are we still in the middle of this war? Now, our ancestors and the modern day man, not the ones pre-comet, post-comet. I mean, was that a result? Was that a weapon thrown at us? Was it something that they deliberately threw that comet off of its orbit? It's very easily done. Doesn't take much inertia to move an object in a vacuum. Well, space is not technically a vacuum either. So are these things that we call angels? I mean, you think about a war of angels, you know, how can you have good, bad angels? I mean, we're not going to get into that mindset, but the fact is this what we're actually interpreting? Is this what happened to the inner solar system? Is this why there's now this separation? And yet, there is even a larger separation. Is this war still going on? The Hindu belief system says that there was a mighty battle, the blue beings. Now, I don't know about beings with wings. They are said to have found skeletons. So the question I always look at, was there in fact a war to conquer our solar system? Were these our ancestors, our true ancestors? Now, some would say, well, it's just, you know, ancient man's depiction. No. This is not. It's too detailed, too descriptive. And you can see the alien reptile is sucking off his mother's breast. We know in the Hindu culture, they talk about these beings. They describe them in detail. But we just look at it. You see, this is what I cannot reconcile. I know I come from the Christian faith. We ridiculed the Hindus. We said, those bunch of savages, you know, they got so many gods, they don't know what to believe. The arrogance, it's racist. It separates our races, and therefore it's racist. You can't think like that, folks. That's the virus. It's shutting your mind off to the possibility. So was the moon built for our species maybe millions of years ago, maybe hundreds of thousands of years ago? We don't know. But did they ferry us here? Were we under some other control? Is there a greater power out there, a greater organization, a mindset, a doctrine that conquers worlds, other life forms, and we happen to be in the nets? Our ancestors says they're going to return. I don't know. Makes one think, doesn't it? Excuse me, let me get out of this. Yeah, it does. I mean, I'm just trying to go by this to review of everything that we've been putting together. I mean, I could make this a marathon to begin to get this laid out of what we have discovered thus far. Now, I did want to bring up, allow me to bring up, oh, excuse me, I have to share it, otherwise you can't see it. Let's go to a book that we never completed, and we should, I apologize, Aerials. This is the alien interview. And we had left off with Lozi, who apparently is what they say many of us are. They call us Isbies. So he was a philosopher who actually lived. I believe it was in China. Tibet, maybe. Anyway, let's just see what this says. I wanted to bring this out. He wrote a small book called The Way. We've all seen it. It was an Isbie of great wisdom who overcame the effects of the old empire amnesia, hypnosis machinery, and escaped from Earth. Okay, let's continue. His understanding of the nature of the Isbie must have been very good to accomplish this. Let's read what he wrote. This is an excerpt. According to the common legend, his last lifetime as a human was lived in a small village in China. He contemplated the essence of his own life. Yeah, like we all do. Like the great master Siddhartha, he confronted his own thoughts and past lives. Now, I'm excited to mention this. Guess who we're having back on? Lisa Bennett's coming back on. We're just getting time. I think we have a hard date. So I am going to enjoy this because we're going to be able to get more into the fact that we all have had past lives. All right, continue. In so doing, he recovered some of his own memory, ability, and immortality. So if one can do it, others can as well. That's my philosophy. As an old man, he decided to leave the village to go to the forest to depart the body. You see, I have a video that deals with, we have been denied the knowledge of learning how to depart our bodies. It's shrouded by mystery, and we get so much into this, the paraspirit. We know what happens. Now, in the video that I did, the program, it shows you that death is not the end. Is that literally we can, upon our own will, die. Not by suicide, but naturally. Anyway, the village gatekeeper stopped him and begged him to write down his personal philosophy before leaving. Here's a small piece of advice he gave about the way he rediscovered his own spirit. He wrote, "He who looks will not see. He who listens will not hear it. He who gropes will not grasp it. The formless non-entity the motionless source of motion. The infinite essence of the spirit is the source of life. Spirit is self. Where have we heard this before? Walls form and support a room, yet the space between them is most important. A pot is formed of clay, yet the space formed therein is most useful. Action is caused by the force of nothing on something. Wow. I love that. Action is caused by force of nothing on something. We know what that is. We've been studying that. Just as this nothing of spirit is the source of all form, the paraspirit. One suffers great afflictions because one has a body. Ain't that the truth? Without a body, what afflictions could one suffer? When one cares more for the body than for his own spirit, one becomes the body and loses the way of the spirit. Wow. One suffers great afflictions because one has a body. We all know that. Without a body, what afflictions could one suffer? One who cares more for the body than for his own spirit, one becomes the body and loses the way of the spirit. We have read this in virtually every thread of thought. It's a repeated theme. And for myself, and I don't know about you, but what's the old adage? Let it be in the mouth of two or more witnesses, let everything be established. We have multiple witnesses on this theme. The self, the spirit, creates illusion. The delusion of man is that reality is not an illusion. One who creates illusions and makes them more real than reality follows the path of the spirit and finds the way of heaven. Now, if that isn't turned inside out and twisted inside around, so the self, spirit, creates illusion. The delusion of man is that reality is not an illusion. Let's chew on that a second. So the delusion of man is that reality is not an illusion. Well, I think that would make sense, right? Even if it is an illusion. I mean, take a person who's suffering from psychosis. And let's say that they have multiple personality disorder. No, I can even get it to, let's say that, well, I could get real specific in here, that you see yourself as extremely lucky. And you go in to a casino because you are extremely lucky. You're walking into a reality that is not an illusion, but you have brought an illusion of yours into this reality, and whether it manifests or not is another topic. And it goes on to say, one who creates illusions and makes them more real than reality. I mean, it's been said of me, I know we've known others that, what's the old expression? They always just seem to land on their feet upright. You know? What is that? And it says that the one who creates illusions and makes them more real than reality follows the path of the spirit and finds the way of heaven. Now, this guy lived. This is not just something that just is made up. Ariel says that he escaped. Let's go on a little bit more. This is exciting. This is 593 BCE, before the current event. The Genesis story written by the Jewish people describe angels or sons of God mating with women of earth who bore them children. They were probably renegades of the old empire. Oh, we know We're going to get more into this. I did, again, go back in the archives. I've seen the bones. They exist. These giants, I don't know if they were human. I don't know if they were of the species of man. Who knows? But, they did. They may have been space pirates or merchants from a system outside the galaxy who came to steal mineral resources or smuggle drugs. I thought about this when I read that, and I went, why do we think it is so alien in thought that other intelligences would not do the very same thing that we do here? Drug runners, people who steal, cartels, political organizations. I don't think man made that up. I think that we were taught that. And then again, maybe it's just in a natural evolutionary process. Could be, I guess. The domain has observed that there are many visitors to Earth from neighboring planets and galaxies. One of the things we found out in the Spirit book was that every planet is inhabited. Our arrogance blocks it out for the fact that we think that this is the only life form. Well, you can't be alive if you're not human. Says who? But they rarely stop and live here. What kind of beings would live on a prison planet if they were not forced to do so? You got to hear it. Could you just see it? Advanced craft moving through. They've conquered the space-time continuum thing. They come here and they see Earth and they see that this is a prison. This is a hell planet. We all know if you're living here, it's hell. People keep wanting to say that, life is so wonderful. Yeah, it may be for the individual, but the planet itself is a hell. It's got great beauty, but that beauty can kill you. The same book also reports the story of a human named Ezekiel who witnessed a spacecraft or aircraft landing near the Shabar River in Chaldea. His description of the craft uses very archaic language, technically, but is nevertheless quite an accurate description of an old empire saucer or scout craft. It is similar to the sighting of the Vimanas. Oh, come on, Steiger. Vimanas by the people in the foothills of the Himalayas. So these Vimanas, these are the spaceships. They still see them. Vianas, yeah. I get that. You get that thing. So it says their Genesis story also mentions that Yahweh designed biological bodies to live for 120 years on Earth. Interesting take, isn't it? Biological bodies on most Sun Type 12 Class 7 planets are usually engineered to last for an average of about 150 years. Human bodies on Earth last about half as long. We suspect this is because the prison administrators have altered the biological material of human bodies on Earth to die more frequently so that the Isbies who inhabit them will recycle through the amnesia mechanism more frequently. It should be noted that much of the Old Testament was written during the captivity of the Jews who were enslaved in Babylon, which was very heavily controlled by priests of the old empire. The book introduces a false sense of time and a false concept of the origin of creation. The serpent is the symbol of the old empire. It appears in the beginning of their creation story, or as the Greeks say, Genesis, and causes the spiritual destruction of the first human being, who were metaphorically represented by Adam and Eve. Boy, there's a different take on this one. The Old Testament, clearly influenced by the old empire, forces give a detailed description of the Isbies being induced into biological bodies on Earth. This book also describes many of the old empire brainwashing activities, including the installation of false memories, lies, superstitions, commands to forget, and all manner of tricks and traps designed to keep the ISBE on Earth. Most importantly, it destroys the awareness that humans are immortal spiritual beings. Wow. Wow. I love it. Now, in that, we'll go back and do the thing, and we'll finish up. We got to finish up the Spirits book. We're almost done that, and we'll get with the alien interview, because, you know, we learned in the beginning of that book, those of us who are aware, we don't come back willingly. Some of us have been forcibly traumatized in our original form because we regained our memories. Now, they say that there is a field that is going to be eventually, I think, perceptible to man. That's what we're searching for. That when we die, the essence of who we really are goes through this force field. Some say it's the light at the end of the tunnel. But whatever it is, it wipes us. But the system is breaking down. These are apparently very ancient systems. And some of us regain enough of our understanding. Now, this is according to Ariel, that we begin to fight them. And apparently it's pretty brutal, traumatizing. We know we're about to be wiped. The hell that we continue to live over and over. They can't wipe us completely. Eventually, we find out. And when we find out, the awakening process sucks, because people stare, people point, people talk. You're not like everybody else. But what you're trying to say is that, wait a minute, we don't need to be like this. But yet, and the thing about Earth is that if you look at every government on the Earth, it's totalitarian in its execution. It's all designed. We have entered in, ladies and gentlemen, to the electronic prison. I think, this is just a thought, that our captors are losing it. And they had to find victims, simple minds, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg, Elon Musk, simple minds, that they could inject the virus, the schematics, to build what we call the electronic network, the internet, the social net. It's exactly what Ariel was describing pre-internet. And the stories are abounding what's happening here. They're recording us. I think they're becoming so desperate that they're coming out into the opens. And people like me, others, I can list them off. Rex Bear, Leak Project, Jeff Doherty, Christian Whistleblower. I mean, I can just go through a myriad of such other channels that are bringing the message out. We are becoming a threat. This community has become a threat. They're already infiltrated. I get reports. I know what they're doing. I don't know how to stop it, but it's here. We're living it. That's why we're going to practice how to get through. We're going to learn the techniques, the shaman. You see, that's one thing I am finding pre-comet impact. And if that was in fact a weapon, an attack on Earth. But what I have found is that the shamans were here. And the shamans, throughout the many different cultures we're finding through the digging, they knew something. And I think we're going to find out what they knew as well. All right, folks. I hope this has been fun. It's stimulating, no doubt about it. And we're going to continue. We're just, we're just a collector. We are an amalgamation of information that's coming in. We don't preach a doctrine. We don't proselytize. We're just saying we're not sure. We're doing our best to figure it out. And with the recurrence of memory, many of these questions are answered. Far out. And it is groovy, everyone. It is fascinating. I mean, great mind coitus. You got to love this. I mean, whether it be true, whether it be fantasy, listen, keep an open mind. And by keeping an open mind, we're going to find out. We just know things aren't right here. They just ain't right, folks. And I tell you, my biggest concern is what we're seeing with these tech companies. They're imprisoning us, and regrettably, most of mankind is doing exactly that, walking right into it, embracing it. Anyway, that's just a story for another time. All right, join us tomorrow with Trina for Second Look, and we got a great topic. It's really going to be a cool topic. All right, thank you everyone for joining me. Appreciate it. Thank you for your kindness. I just invoke favor and love upon you. And hey, it's a journey. One thing about it, we're all connected here, and no matter how we depart, we're always going to know that we have this energy. I swear, I think we're going to be able to spot each other without ever really having to meet. All right, folks, I'll see you tomorrow. Be good.